Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 307 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. Just my microphone. My name is David Reed. I really appreciate you being with me for this episode. Dean Marshall, Sergeant Bates in Stargate Atlantis, one of our earlier unexpected antagonists inside. That's one of the things that I loved about this show was you had the Wraith on the outside, and then you had the people who were on the inside causing some legitimate issues as well. And
Indeed.
Mr. Dean Marshall, okay, get rid of that thing there. Welcome to the show, sir. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks for inviting me.
What was it like rewatching? Because a lot of the actors don't choose to rewatch the show before we get started. What was it like?
It was
re-experiencing that.
Definitely a fun visit. I had tears in my eyes. It was one of those
Really?
it was a moist moment for me, for sure. It was fun. It was fun looking back at that and watching that character develop over the series. And yeah, it did. It brought back great memories. And seeing my buddy Paul McGillian.
Paul.
Indeed, because I remember one of our first scenes, and as I was watching, I realized the first time we shot together. There was an opening scene I remember watching with Sumner coming up and telling me I should be using my sidearm on him for touching stuff, or something like that, to that effect. And we had a good laugh about that. But yeah, Paul and I definitely bonded heavily in that series and had a lot of fun.
I want to step back a little bit earlier. How old were you when you knew that this was, what you wanted to do for a big chunk of your life? When did you realize, you know what? I think I can pull this off. I think I can entertain some people and, get paid to play.
Well, exactly, and it's definitely about the enjoyment of it. I think as I got out of high school and I was looking for things to do, I went into pure and applied sciences, and I thought maybe I wanted to be a scientist of some kind. I enjoyed it so much, and then went to college and failed miserably in physics and chemistry, and I want to say it's definitely a lot of my fault, but I remember the entire class failing on chemistry and the teachers getting fired some years afterwards. So
it's not a good sign, Dean.
There was a lack of inspiration for sure. Yeah. And then after that, I decided, well, I didn't just want to go pick up a job and go work at McDonald's for the summer. I went and joined the Army and went in there for 2.5 years and, enjoyed the experience. It was a hell of a discipline. It was a hell of a learning experience. It taught me a lot about myself, about what I was able to endure and not endure. And acting was on the back burner in the back of my mind. I remember I tried out for production in high school for a lead character, and I got it. And then I was terrified that I got it. And then I looked at all the information.
I got it. Oh shit, I got it.
I really got it. And I chickened out. I 100% I chickened out. I did not think I had what it took to get all those lines down.
No.
And there was a lot of lines, and I was terrified. That being
what
said,
the part
though,
was?
I think I was playing Joseph in a Jesus story, to tell you the truth. We were in a Catholic school. It wasn't heavily Catholic or anything, but they were just telling one of the stories. And it was just too much. I felt so intimidated, but the bug was there. There was something about performing, and I had been performing since I was a young person, probably around 9. My father was part of a steel band that came from Trinidad, from Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. He was in the Coast Guard. They got brought over in Expo 67 and moved to Canada, and of course grew up with calypso and steel pan and playing that music. I was playing since I was 9 years old and on stage and loving that kind of feel of the crowd and you name it. And I was like, I have to find a way back to the stage. And after the very disappointing foray into sciences, I was like, you know what? Why don't you try out for something you actually really love and would like to do?
Yeah.
And I did. And I went to my old English teacher to help me prep for auditions for the theater program that I eventually ended up getting. And went on for 3 years in there and found my true love. And I was I was truly blown away by the process. I was pretty ignorant about anything acting, of course. As I said, I was such a chicken. And learning to muster my courage to delve deep into the work, to let that sort of embrace you and guide you, and try to make as true of a performance as possible in everything I do. And it stemmed from there, and it stemmed from me just being fearful. And stage has always been that for me. Stage work has always been that if it doesn't scare me, don't do it. So now it's always about find the fear. If there's something that scares you, then that must mean that you should be trying to do this.
You are the second person who has told me that. The other person was Tom Macbeth.
Oh, really? Tom
Yes.
Macbeth.
He says, I
Indeed.
don't do it if it doesn't scare me.
Oh, it's
And I
gotta
think
be
that there's
terrifying.
something to be said for that, because I think it acknowledges that you're tapping against the edges of your perceived abilities,
100%.
and that you're asking a part of yourself to take a step into a dark place where you can't really see your footing.
You
may
you
fall,
rehearse.
but
Yes,
you
of course.
drill it. You drill the material.
100%. 100%. If anything about the army taught you that is drilling. Drill, drill, drill until you get it, until you understand it, until you become it, whatever it is. You have to know it inside and out. Fear is the unknown. And as much as you can control, that's where you can alleviate the fear. And when you are fearful in the beginning and you decide that this is going to be your opportunity to overcome that fear, it is an incredible feeling of your own personal success to get through that and manage to make it happen and get on that stage or be in front of that camera and work it out. So yeah, that's
there's
pretty much my journey into acting.
I think that should be a takeaway for a lot of people who I think one of the problems with modern society is that especially this younger generation, they're afraid to fail. They're terrified of failing. And if you aren't willing to fail, you're not going to get anywhere, because failure is such an enormous teacher. Now, blind, stupid failing is not what we're talking about here.
No.
Like directionless, unproductive. But if you're trying, you're going to learn something. And
Absolutely.
if people laugh at you, so what? You know?
You know, a really good quote I just recently heard. It was from a US comic, and it was the world sort of admires courage. And if you are able to muster that, you will get recognition for it. It's not like, as long as that is not what you're going to be, you're not going to be recognized, but you're going for the courage to accomplish that. And I think if you do, it's a stepping stone in your life to say, well, I could go on and try the next thing. What is the next thing that I could possibly climb over and hopefully have some success for?
It has so much to do. When people respond to you, they respond to you so much more positively if you're coming from a place of trying to admit to something that you're not comfortable of, rather than saying, "Oh, I got this." You know, it's amazing how we respond to that. It's like, "Oh, you got this, do you? You have nothing to learn, do you?" That may not even be your intent, but so much of that delivery, you know.
I could see through that pain too. You know, people when sometimes people are overconfident about it, you just see, he must be struggling with something deep that he needs to mask that, or she or he needs to mask that. There is always this struggle. There is always uncertainty, as we talk about as actors, even from stage work or whatnot. Those butterflies are real. If they're not, then you're not in a good place. You have to be slightly on edge. That feeling of anything can happen, especially live shows. That's what keeps you on your toes and keeping you trying to be as focused as possible to get the audience the message that you're trying to send.
When I had it, you're reminding me, when I had a cubicle, I had a little piece of paper. It was like this. And it was a circle over here and a void. And in the side of the circle, it said, your comfort zone. And then there's a dot over here, and underneath it says, where the magic happens.
Indeed.
And I think about that all the time, you know.
Indeed.
Be willing to try something. When did you come to Vancouver?
So 22 years in Montreal, 5 years in Toronto, doing a lot of a lot of stage work. Vancouver after that did I land in 99 or 98? Somewhere in that neighborhood. It was January pretty much needed to get out and start new again,
Yeah.
and see what I could do in Vancouver. And that's where most of the film work opened up, for sure.
Okay. Did you go into moving there with anything ready to go, or was it like boots on the ground? I'm starting
Books.
from square one. Here we go.
Books and my guitar and a couple of good buddies. And not that I used it to make any money playing guitar. I've always been pretty casual. I have used it in shows for sure, but it's not the thing that I said, okay, music is going to take me here or there. It was just part of my comfort zone to have those pieces around me.
And how aware were you of Stargate before? And had you auditioned for anything on SG-1?
Yes. I remember having a couple auditions in the the late part of their series, because how many seasons did they do again?
They did 10. Atlantis started with SG-1 season 8.
Right. So I felt like it was around 6 or 7 when, I guess, in that time frame where I started seeing a lot of that. I mean, I think at that time I was hitting all of the regular sci-fi shows from Poltergeist and
Outer Limits.
Outer Limits, of course, and all of those things. I felt like I was doing the gamut, and I was feeling like, okay, I'm coming up. Got to get me on one of these shows. It's gonna happen. And it was kind of fluky. I was in a really good space, and it was a one-on-one with Martin Wood, the obviously show creator and director and producer, that pulled this role into my life. And it was with a nod and a sort of, that was good, Dean. And then I didn't hear anything. It was so quiet. It was so done. And I was like,
so that was your response for your Bates audition? That was good.
That was from Martin Wood. Yeah, that was good, Dean. Just the way he said it and kind of looked off, and I was like, well, I didn't think about it. I'm like, it was. I feel like that was a one-off. It was late in the afternoon.
Not a chance in hell.
I wasn't even thinking about it again. I was like, okay, I went in an audition, and I didn't know the size of the role at the time either. I thought this was, a 1 or 2 liner. It was it wasn't going to be anything. And next thing you know, I got pulled into this pilot, and I'm standing next to Robert Patrick, going, what the hell is going on here? And then I felt truly that little dot and that circle that you were just talking about. I'm like, here I am now. Here's that weird, magical, uncomfortable, not sure what's going on. Work very hard, but here's where I was.
99% work hard, 1% talent. Maybe feed more talent in. Yeah,
I'm trying to. Indeed.
I totally see the Army now. I totally see that influence, because you were a Hardass, and the character was... Sumner gets knocked off at the end of the pilot. Spoiler for everyone who hasn't seen Stargate Atlantis, but that thing going through the gate and all that. This is really cool stuff in the show.
Exactly.
You were essentially his lieutenant, and I think that the Bates was, and I think that a big chunk of this character was kind of representing his spirit in the room.
100%.
Because it was very antagonistic, and this major comes along who was last on latrine duty at McMurdo in Antarctica. Who the hell does he think he is? Just because he has some kind of alien gene in him that he thinks that he can run this entire thing? And the person who appointed it is a UN ambassador? What the hell is going on here? Tell us who Bates was for you.
He was a chain of command kind of guy, and I think you touched upon it. He, especially my own training, and obviously, there's always room to be an individual, even in this man's army. But the rule of law and the chain of command was absolute. So when Sumner had died in the show, it felt like there was only one duty left, and is to make sure that military strategy, that military thought process of chain of command gets followed, because now we're in unknown territory. And if we do not have that chain of command, if we do not have those rules and regulations in place, all of this can come apart, and that little society could be extinct in a matter of episodes.
Yeah, there's scientists and a bunch and a few guys, with guns protecting the scientists, essentially hens in a hen house from wolves who want to eat them.
Indeed.
And I love this character because It didn't feel cookie cutter. It didn't feel mustache twirling. I'm here just to push back against you. It really felt like there was a legitimate, you were a legitimate adversarial voice to contextualize the situations that they were in, to make sure that everyone got the message that, look, we're not playing games. We're out here alone. There's no one else but us. And yeah, we'd like to do this stuff and we'd like to help these people, but I've got to remind you folks of certain things here.
100%. And I think, Joe's character for Joe Flanagan, I felt he was an assault on the whole military. I think in the first couple of episodes was just dealing with a guy who I thought took this all too lightly, who was too cavalier. And
Sheppard's
I
cavalier.
was 100%. And I felt like it was an affront to everything I had learned and was taught under a man like Sumner. And I definitely pushed hard to try to rein him in, which of course you can't. It's Joe Flanagan.
You'd have an easier time herding cats.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Was that fun to play? That kind of give and take, that it's a fencing match, and you are kind of really a man alone.
Indeed. I saw that as an island for sure. I think even there were moments as I was rewatching some of the episodes where even what's her name?
Tori, Elizabeth Weir?
Tori Higginson. Tori Higginson was like looking over at me like, where are you going with this angle? Yeah. And I sort of saw it as like, yeah, you are an island. You are the last sole survivor of a military idea from the States that is going to die here unless you can get these people to see what we need to do to survive. And I was trying to drive that home to them. Obviously, too heavy-handed, too young and inexperienced.
Oh yeah, he's cocky. He's cocky.
Exactly. Yeah. There's too much of that going on. And he needed that. He needed that to stand up to Joe's character and to, of course, David Hewlett, who was a force on set and as well as a character. And I needed those two to understand me the most. And it was vindication for sure when they had to turn around and say I was actually right. And that Bates was actually on point with something. He went around it in a horrible little way at times, but he was actually right. And you should have been suspicious and you should have been looking at all these little details that he tuned you into in the end.
I think when he has all the information, he makes very relevant observations. But when he's out of the loop, like any of us, it's like, okay, we're missing some stuff here. And I think that's very right. I think that's very representative of a good leader. This young man is has watched someone essentially usurp his position.
And watch a mentor die.
Someone he respected very much. And I think almost all of us have been in that situation where we feel that, hey, if we're lucky, we feel that, hey, I am qualified for this. I know I am. Or I'm the only one that's left that is remotely qualified for this, even if I'm not fully qualified for this. And then someone comes along and cuts our knees out from under us. All of us have had that experience, whether we're pursuing a partner, someone that we'd like to have as our partner, or a job, and you feel threatened. And I think if we really look at Bates's character, I think that we can see that a piece of ourselves in that.
I had a philosophy in the early days where I was playing with it. It's that, if you remember the saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It just felt like I am walking around with blind people. I'm constantly shaking my head in disbelief. Really, guys, you really don't get this.
I think when you're in a situation where you have aliens that are literally trying to eat you, or spiritually trying to eat you, whatever it was, I think that it would have been far more interesting show if they were actually eating them.
Indeed. I know.
All bets are off. This is a whole new ball game.
It is, but it stems, especially from my point of view and the character's point of view, is where discipline comes in. Like if you're here to face the unknown, and all you have left is your training and what you've learned and your experiences, of course, but training being paramount. We've been trained, and you would assume that this was all, especially everybody who was up on this expedition, had been trained in the most bizarre ways or had all kinds of very varying degrees of experiences around the world dealing with threats of unknown kinds and going into situations where you might not completely control, and how do you get control of the situation? And this is a prime example of being completely out of your elements and still trying to find a base to focus on and stay grounded.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
When you were rewatching the show, did you notice the shift in Bates's perception of Sheppard no longer as a threat, but more as someone who is beginning to fall into the place of leader? Because
100%.
can you talk about that?
Yeah,
And you
and it was
remember that being on the
100.
page when you read it.
As I was seeing it, oh well, I wasn't completely on the page, but I made it
Right.
a part of it, and I was
Oh,
remembering
please,
that
say more.
it was that one seating where we were looking at possible alpha sites to remuster everybody from Atlantis with the incoming threat. And there was a moment where I said, well, that one's no good. And he says something to the effect, so is that actually happening, or is that just your spider sense tingling? And I turned to him and I looked at him like almost for a second, like, go F yourself. And then I smiled and went, of course, it's Sheppard. No, sir, it's the facts. And if that moment was a turning point for me, and I think Martin was actually directing that, and he had commented on it as well. It was time to soften Bates, and that was the perfect opportunity to sort of say, you know what, Sheppard, I'm not going to fight you on everything. And we're both humans and we're both stuck in this situation. Let's find a way to work. And I think that was the sort of TSN turning point where Bates and Sheppard now were aligned. And we never looked back, for sure.
Yeah. No, I love those beats because, if there are those people who are like, I'm never yielding. Never.
Yeah.
Now this is between you and me. This is no longer about necessarily what's right or wrong. And I love that particular choice was made because, if you're beginning to soften someone, you start, at least I start experimenting by teasing with them.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
you're okay. Are you going to play with me here? Or are you going to slap me down?
And I think
love
I
that.
did.
That's very real.
Absolutely. I think I did. With Sheppard, it was at that moment of like, okay, can I swear on this thing?
Yeah.
I was trying to make sure.
Yeah.
I was just like, fuck it. I'm like, I'm not going to play these games with him. Obviously, I know he's poking fun at me and he's trying to poke the bear, but the bear's happy. He's got lots of honey. I'm good to go.
I think, the respect factor comes along, and it is full circle by the time that we see him again with Outcast. And I want to speak about Outcast in terms of the relationship between superior and subordinate. When we see him again, there's clearly some stuff that we've missed in between the two of them, where he has gone back to Earth, and I think he's in a different point now as Special Agent Bates, not just Sergeant. He's at a different point in his life and in his career, and I think Atlantis really made him grow.
Indeed. Well, you see I think the deference, the respect that was given to Sheppard initially in that meeting was one, and we talk about it in the scene where it's like, you don't have to call me sir, and I'm like, old habits die hard. But
That's right.
What I was really saying is, Sheppard, in all the time that we've known each other, and probably what I was briefed with my security clearances back on, I know what he has done to save humanity time and time again. There is a level of settled respect. And that's what I was trying to bring to those moments as well, where I felt like, you know what? This guy has done what we asked him to do and more, and he will get the respect for that.
One of my favorite shows from Atlantis is, there's a bit of an arc here. So we have an episode called Suspicion where we capture a Wraith played by, I believe, James Lafazanos, if I'm not mistaken. And then through that to an episode called Poisoning the Well, where we're actually experimenting on this guy. So that audiences know, at the same time this is happening is also the Abu Ghraib prison problem. how do you feel about how those stories played out, and when you were playing those characters in the moment, the heaviness of that issue of, okay, we've got an enemy, we've
And we're about to torture him.
yeah, and right, exactly. How did you feel about that as a person, and and then plugging that
As
into
a
the character?
Bates had no problems with it.
Yeah.
Bates is do what you got to do to survive because it is a question of human survivability. And this is the predator that will wipe us all out. So for me, for Bates, not for me personally, but
And
for
he's
Bates,
right.
absolutely. All bets are off. For me, I'm a little bit more liberal, but at the same time, I'm also a realist. You would have to convince me that this makes sense for what we're trying to accomplish. I wouldn't go easy. Bates would. I wouldn't. He's got more national security in mind. I got more of this is a creature of this universe, and should we be treating it such? Would you want that on you? He
Absolutely.
can't help. The Wraiths can't help be what they are. As
No.
like we always say, they are creatures of the universe as well. They need to feed, and this is what they need to feed on.
Until we find them a substitute, though, I keep thinking of the scorpion and the fox. Couldn't help it. It's my nature.
It's in my nature. It's in my
Yeah.
nature. No more than try to convince a cow that some human beings are good.
Right, exactly. They may pet you and play with you, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
they
but they're
give you a
gonna
little
eat you.
love tap on the back of the head here at a certain point. Yeah, no, it's but they treat we are their cattle. That is precisely what we are to them. And if you were really in that situation, how far would you go to protect
As
the
a
people
cow?
that? Right.
You would look at it better that way.
Yeah.
If you were a
you
cow,
didn't have
you had
hooves,
the power,
if you had
guns,
and the ability to
ammunition,
save yourself.
you might, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be crazy if all the cows ran amok? That's a good.
Oh my
That's a
God.
good story idea.
Cows, chickens. Well, I mean,
Shyamalan should have done that instead of The Happening.
I know. That would have worked out. I don't know how we would do it. It's like Animal Farm comes to life.
Right, exactly.
100%.
I loved the big ideas that Stargate presented, especially in terms of our relationship with our adversaries, what it is that we owe them, that we know that we're not going to get in return, and where the line is drawn between remaining human and becoming something that we don't even recognize anymore. Like by the time, let's say years later, there was never any help, and they survived the first siege somehow and made it to the Alpha side. Whoever eventually came on that ship to discover whoever was left of humanity, how much human would there have been left in the survivors?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about the humanity that we did find off-world and their struggles with the Wraith and their kind and what they did to survive and how yet their dignity stayed intact, how yet their feeling of survivability was still there. They had plans. They understood the culling was coming. They understood it like in effect, they couldn't do anything about it, but there were ways for them to survive and to keep their history going and to have respect and dignity for one another. One would hope that this part of the gate would behave the same way at some point, and maybe we wouldn't lose our humanity so much. We wouldn't go down the dark road. Some will. Eventually, some will, some crack. But I think overall, with the right people motivating you to be the best that you can be in any situation, I think we might have, who knows, might have reflected what Taylor and them brought to the table with the Athosians.
Absolutely. That's a really interesting perspective. I think that you're right on the money on a lot of that, because even though the Wraith were essentially storm clouds on the horizon, or or a regularly expected earthquake or natural disaster that was going to claim your people in a horrible way, that doesn't mean you can't find a way to have and maintain a certain level of dignity and self-respect.
I think all the good stories always tell you that, right? You know, you're up against the worst of it. You're up against the worst of life can throw you. And somehow you manage to find a thread that keeps you grounded enough to say, well, I won't do that, or I won't go that far. I'm not going to eat my father, or whatever you feel like, whatever your limit is, that we're done here, and
Even if
we'll
I
go
have to
no
die.
further. Indeed, indeed. And that is the sacrifice of your true nature. If you can get to that point where you say to yourself, I would never cross this line, then I think you've held on to your humanity.
Wow. Damn, that's a lot to chew on.
Indeed.
Pardon the pun.
Even for a wraith. That's right.
Pass me a hunk of kneecap. Yeah. Anyway,
Indeed.
any particular days you remember on set that stand out to you? Anything that I'm missing before I move on?
Oh, I've always feel there was always just wonderful little moments, and like I said, it was a treat, especially for me as a young actor, to be with David Hewlett was a huge impact on and off set, and what he said, I perked up to and listened. No matter where he was in the room, I felt like he was an inspiration to be around. The comedy of Paul McGillian always had me laughing and in tears and kept me relaxed on set. He was always a blast to be around.
Did you know Paul before?
Yeah, yeah. We'd known each other through the circuit because obviously
Yeah.
as two Vancouver actors, we'd seen each other a lot in auditions and whatnot. So yeah, we definitely hung together, and we've been to each other's houses and met each other's families. And
His kids are great. I've met him.
oh, have
Yeah.
you? That's wonderful.
Yeah,
I
they're
have
adorable.
not met the older versions of them, but we've moved on from our. I obviously have two kids myself. I have two boys who are 16 and 13, and so as time does at times, it just makes you drift apart. And I haven't seen Mr. McGilly in a while, but he's always fondly in my memories. That's for sure.
What about the level of production value, the quality of the sets, the
Amazing,
props, the
amazing,
costumes? Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. I used to come home and joke around with my family at the time, or whoever, not my family, because I guess I wasn't even with my family at that point. But just to say that, that they're using old vacuum hoses and pieces of broken car and put a paint job on it, and there it looks surreal and, out of this world. And days on set, especially that Stargate set itself, busting through the Stargate itself and then coming onto this incredible set. I was truly just in awe. And listen, I'm a sci-fi fan since I was a kid. Of course, I was a Star Wars kid, and everything to do with anything space-wise. So it was a child in a playland that was amazing, and it was surreal. It was unbelievable for me at times where I would stand in certain parts of that set and go, I can't believe I'm standing here. It was truly amazing. Yeah. And that happened a lot because obviously between cuts and scenes, I'm wandering around learning my lines, and then I'd have to stop and go, oh, look what they made that from. Look what they did with that.
The
Yeah.
thing I was always split and amazed as the show as the franchise got older. They began to have the ability to manufacture more and more things that were complicated.
Absolutely.
And then, but when you would turn around and I'd be like, okay, what is that? And they'd be like, well, this is actually this and this. I'm like, it is.
Yes.
You got that
yes.
from that, and part of me, the first half of me would be like when I would talk to the production people from Bridget McGuire all the way down would be, you transformed an everyday object into something else, and then second, my other thought was, what kind of mind would it have taken to come up with that? It's like, who are these
the
people?
artistry,
The
they're
artistry.
artists. 100%. They are truly artists. When you look at any of the great artists, what's the famous one who did all the alien stuff?
Oh, Giger, H.R. Giger.
Oh, Giger,
Yeah.
Giger's
Oh, man.
mind. But look at the intricacies of just a little piece of a painting. Don't even look at the whole thing, but come down here and go, look at what his mind developed in that little corner here. And that's what I feel sometimes being on these sets. It's like you're looking at the artistry of imagination. And it's truly, I love being on that edge with people, especially in a modern production at the time, of watching their brains work and find these little things that you would never have conceived of. And that's why you appreciate a production. You appreciate all these minds coming together and building this incredible thing that you're putting together.
What percentage
It was very special.
of the character is informed by all those externalities compared to how much of the character is what you put into it? Is it 50-50 or is
I
it
would think
somewhere around there?
I would think it's solidly in the 50-50 line
Yeah.
because all of a sudden, you could find yourself even as a character, as you should, if you are aware and you are looking and you are watching, because acting is never just about the person in front of you. It's your whole environment. So I'm constantly looking around and trying to find something new in the room to interest me, where it's like, wow, those ancients really thought of it all, didn't they? And they got this, and I'm always wondering, what does that bathroom look like? Is what I really want to know. How do they take care of business on the pod?
Oh God, the latrine. No, what's the army?
Indeed.
What's the army designation?
It is. It would be the
It is
latrine. For
latrine.
sure.
Okay, got it. So there was a departure for you from the show.
Indeed.
Is there a story behind that, or was it just like there was no
the
material
funniest
for season 2?
the funniest story is I was actually, after the first season, they had released the CD box set director's cut commentary. On it was Joe Flanagan, Martin Wood.
Different episodes had different groupings.
Exactly. So they grouped different people together. So on the episode where I went down into a coma was the first time I figured out I wasn't coming back. And Martin said it in a way that made complete and utter sense to me. It's like, sometimes you actually do have to kill characters that people love to get them to care that much more about what you're trying to do with the overall show. And that was the first time it hit me. Of course, the ego and the sense of like, I might not be a part of this production anymore.
Of course.
Crushing, where you're feeling like, oh my God, I felt like I was in the zone of zones, and this could roll as long as the show's going. It took definitely a maturity on me, and just to sort of suck back my own ego and realize that what Martin said was absolutely true. If you look at any of the good shows, eventually somebody's got to go for you to care that much more. And I'm glad that they thought I was that person, between me and I think
Craig
Veroni.
That's right.
And it was just that feeling of like, yeah, it made sense. And that it made sense to bring me back. Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing. No one's ever really dead in sci-fi.
That we always say that. And, even the casting come down, they're always like, don't worry, Dean, you don't die.
No, and when the doors of the Apollo open and you step through,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I jumped to my feet because I didn't see your name in the opening credits, and it was
that's hilarious.
It was like, here we go. Now we
Yep.
get to find out what happened, and there's a brief exchange of dialogue. Hello, Aquaman. How you doing?
Yeah,
Shepard?
exactly. That's right.
what
That was my
it-
first time meeting him.
Oh, there you go. What was it like coming back?
It was great. It was great, and it was good finding out that Joe Flanagan actually helped co-write that show. So in effect, he kind of brought me back, and that was one of the first things I remember saying to him. Thanks for thinking about me. And he says, yeah, it was a show that we were developing and something that they were thinking about for a while, and they managed to put it together. And I'm like, I couldn't be more thankful. And what a way to bring me back. And it was absolutely one of the best weeks back that I've had on a show, for sure. It was great. And it was great, of course, meeting Jason Momoa, who I knew nothing of, but just this, beautiful godlike creature.
Baywatch,
Even
right?
at the time, you're just like, oh my God, who's this guy? He's like, this is a star. Not knowing, of course, that his star would shine so brightly. And he was a wonderful person to meet as well, and played guitar on set. And
That's right. You both play guitar.
Indeed, but I was intimidated to pick up his guitar. I was like, I don't want to touch. Jason
big
sounds
guy.
pretty good on his guitar, and I don't want to go over there and, what are you touching my guitar for?
That's
Yeah,
a good impression.
He had this way of dropping his voice down.
Right. But I want to be serious.
That's right.
Just don't make
What
me
are we
talk
gonna
to you in
do?
Dothraki.
Well, exactly. What are you going to make me do, Shepherd? I just loved it.
There is something, the conceit in a show like this is that, or in any piece of programming, is that, we know that these people aren't real. You're portraying facets of yourselves. So, but there's that part of us is like, they still exist. If they lived, they continued. They probably was shipped back, actually, no, he wouldn't have gone back on the dead list. He would have been through the gate because they had power then. But that these people have lives and continue to be. So when you come back to someone, a few years later, had you ever returned to a character in that manner before, where you picked up a role that you had left behind and had moved into a new space with one?
No, that was absolutely a first time experience. Oh no, I lie.
No, you just misremember. Lying is very different.
Misremember is a Hillary Clinton.
My mother always
line.
said, "You're not lying. Stop that."
You're misremembering. I do remember it because, of course, I was playing a detective in a show for 5 years called Da Vinci's Inquest, and then when they moved on to do the next Da Vinci City Hall, they brought me in as, instead of Constable Carter, I was now Detective Carter. So there was an evolution of character and a sense of progression through that show, where all of a sudden I felt like, oh wow, here we go. I get to bring this character back in new shoes, with new ideas, new thoughts, new scripts and whatnot. And director, producer. Oh, sorry, I'm always horrible with names, and hope he doesn't hate me. But he saw it in me, and he used to tell me that of the first part of the 5 years was that, Dean, that you're the mailman. You're the constable. You're going to come in. You're going to deliver the mail to Da Vinci, let him know the situation. And then by the next series, it was, okay, now I am a decision maker, and I have to decimate information, come up with plans, and do something. It was a great feeling of evolution between the two. And I felt that similar sensation through Stargate, where became from a sort of a delivery man of certain kind to a decision maker. And it was nice to evolve through that. For sure.
You're picking up where you left off, but also not, but also
No.
accepting the fact that there's some time missing.
Indeed.
And, things have to be given an opportunity to transform underneath you so you can discover and be surprised.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's funny. The previous chat before we started, we were wrapping up with Corin Nemec, and I apologize out there in the chats, but someone had said, I really hated Bates.
That's
and
fine.
And he said, and I loved the actor.
Oh,
Which
nice.
I think suggests that you're doing your job.
Indeed.
It's not like
Indeed.
this is a poor performance. It's not that it's a poor performance. It's that it's a good performance of someone, playing the part that they're playing.
Indeed.
To where you're trying to go with it. So
I remember in the early days that they always tell you, whatever you do not read your own reviews. It's crucial, because you'll feel so high when everybody's saying such lovely things about you, and then feel like piece of shit when they're not. So in the early days, of course, that young ego was still trying to find some sort of validation for the things that I was doing. And I remember coming across, I hate Bates posts. And
yeah, but they're not
it grounded
hating
me.
you.
I understood that.
Yeah.
It was still that sensation. Oh, I just don't understand what he's even doing there, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then to have the episodes come back later with suspicion and everything like that, and to sort of see that worked itself, or we're like, yeah, but I hate to admit it, he was right. So then you go, okay, don't take it personal. Right. These people are being affected by what you're putting out there, which is absolutely what you're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be affected by what you have to say and how you're portraying a character. So I did appreciate that, but I also did stop reading any reviews.
Right, because even though it's you, it's not you.
Exactly.
You didn't choose what words to put in him. You didn't choose, the things that he was going to say and the actions that he was going to take. Some of the delivery is yours, of course, but yeah, that's a double-edged sword, man. I think that would make me paranoid as a person in terms of what I was going to select for myself next as a performer, or what maybe I don't even have the option of selecting. Maybe, what I'm going to get next. Am I going to be the asshole? Is that how I'm going to come off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's purely an ego thing. And other than that, once I just sort of turned that part off, you just enjoy the jobs that you do get, and you stop worrying about what, the rest of the world will think about it. All I can do is try my best and whatever role I've been given
Mm-hmm.
an audition for, and put it out there and then let it go. I
Mm-hmm.
sort of cut myself off of social media for that particular reason, where it's like, I don't want to hear things that not that I don't think are critical. I have a director for that. He can be critical.
Mm.
I have producers for that. They can be critical because they're looking for a specific thing and they want me to perform and get to that level, which I'm totally fine with. That's what I'm working for. But for the general public, I love the fact that they're engaged. I just don't want to hear their opinions about me. It's like I don't want to. I can't take it. As most artists will tell you,
Yeah.
if
Most
it's
artists are
too
fairly
sensitive.
sensitive. Yeah.
100%. We put our heart and souls into stuff, and it's
Uh-huh.
never going to work 100%. And you're going to get haters no matter what you
Oh, for
do.
sure.
So I'd rather not read the good or the bad or the ugly.
Yeah,
Stay
I can
away.
imagine that there are a handful of actors out there probably who, they go online and say, "Oh, I hated that character," and they go, "Good."
Well, you
That
want to
was the
see good.
idea, damn it.
Exactly, exactly. If you get the opportunity to portray something, so diabolical, and then it's so much fun. And then watching people go, "Ooh, he creeped me out," or "Oh, that was so hard to watch because he looked like he was enjoying it." And you're like, "Yes, okay."
Uh,
Now, friends come to me and they tell me, "Dean, I read this thing. Okay, I'll listen to it, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not
oh,
going to
for
look for it."
sure, absolutely. No. Lockwatch, I've got some fan questions for you.
Sure.
Lockwatcher, we've talked about most of this. I'm going to ask his question and then kind of massage it into a new direction. When it comes to Stargate Atlantis, how did it compare with other series or films you have done, sets, technical direction, other actors that you may have worked with? If you have something for that, we can certainly discuss it. But I'm also interested in the heavy effects work that you had to do. The amount of green screen work, the level of sophistication with the technology. Was that a dance to maintain a grounded human perspective? Like this is actually
Very
happening real?
fun.
Okay.
Very fun dance. Very fun dance. Some people feel like it's too much when you're green screened around. We weren't in Stargate, that's for sure. I went on to do what was the disaster movie 2012.
Yes.
Spent a couple of weeks on set with that, and that was a green screen extravaganza where
Can't
Roland
imagine
Emmerich.
why.
Oh my goodness. So even that whole scene where we walk in and there's these massive ships that the Chinese have made
Yeah.
that are going to save humanity and everything, and the awe that you're supposed to be inspired by as you're walking down these gangplanks to see these huge equipment and pieces, of course, that you do not see. There is nothing in front of you, and your imagination just runs wild as like, here there be tigers. All I'm looking at is,
Yeah.
unicorns and fairies as far as I'm concerned, going, what the hell? This is real. And that, you want to talk about a technical level. And what they put into that show was truly, truly amazing. I would think for TV and what they did, it was truly amazing.
Yeah.
To watch a big budget film like that unravel its story the way they did and with the green screening and everything, that was a truly amazing experience as well.
Have you ever been stuck with a director, with another performer who is, and I don't want you to name names. I'm curious about your feeling about how you approach something, who was clearly not up for the task?
Paul McGillion. Just joking. I'm 100% joking. You'll kill me. No, no, no. Paul was brilliant always. It's so much fun.
Always.
I would say, without naming names.
And what do you do in that situation is what I'm getting at, you know?
Without naming names, there, to tell you the truth, the only director I really never liked or didn't like was on a commercial I shot.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. And when I step up to work, I do. I'm here to work. I'll give it 100%. There's never been a feeling like I'm in a position with a director or producers or stuff that I feel uncomfortable with, or I don't feel like I could work with them. Definitely in the early days, there were some actors where you're like, oh, that's what a Hollywood actor ego is. Look at the
Ah,
size of that. And, dwarfed me in comparison, where you feel like the air is being sucked out of the room when they walk in. You're like, that's a Hollywood star. And you are not. So
yeah.
behave accordingly.
Yeah.
And
That's so ridiculous, but absolutely true. It shouldn't be, but it is.
it happens. It happens. Folks like Robert Patrick, and I've met wonderful actors like him as well. He's all about business. He's on set to do his job, and he will shut you down if you need to. But he was a person who you could engage with, and I had lots of 100 million Hollywood questions for him about what I should prepare for. This is a young part of my career, and I was like, I had a million things that I needed to know, and he couldn't provide them all. And every once in a while, I'd be like, Dean, not now. I'm in the zone. I was like, okay, pull back. For sure.
But I mean,
and
to
thankfully,
have that relationship with someone,
100%.
On even just for a couple of weeks to be able to have that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I'm trying
and I've
to
had
get
that
him later
experience
this year.
Yeah. Oh, really? That'd be so great.
Yeah,
That'd
we're
be so
working
great.
on it. So he was so good in that. His namesake is my partner over at Gateworld. So
Oh, really?
He was named after Darren. Darren Sumner.
Oh, get out.
So we've always had this kind of special relationship with that character because Darren and I, had been doing this for, almost 25 years now. So,
Very cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, we've been web buddies for a long time. This let me see here. Let me pull this up. Okay. No. Matt T, when you were cast, how quickly did you find out that you were going to be kind of the role of an antagonist?
I didn't know.
You didn't
until
know.
I saw the script.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was coming in. So from the pilot, I remember just that feeling of like, well, here I am.
Yeah.
I know there was no development ideas. Nothing was going on as far as I knew. The writers probably knew. And when I got Suspicion, I was like, oh, here we go. This is what this guy's about. And I started delving into who this character could be and trying to flush him out even more and trying to carry what I brought from the pilot into the series. I think it took Suspicion to settle me into that role and to sort of go, okay, this is what they're asking from me. And then they, as they explained it to me, they definitely needed that antagonist against Joe's character who could be so flippant about things. They needed somebody to solidify the other side. And I realized that and tried to engage and grasp onto that role as hard as possible. And I think there was some success for sure. There were moments where I was looking through even some of this going, I would have taken another take. I have one more take. There's a definite other take I would have preferred. But sometimes the directors see things that you don't see.
When you were auditioning for Rising, was it at that point clear that this was a potential recurring? Was it guaranteed recurring? Was it just the pilot?
As I mentioned earlier, I had no idea what was happening. It was literally, I had 4 lines or 5 lines to audition with.
Okay.
I went in as a military character. There were lines that eventually I remember hearing that were Joe's lines. For a particular scene, calling out Rachel in something for what's her name? What was
Taylor.
Taylor's character. And I remember it was like, Taylor, are you there? Blah, 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 blah. And then I remember seeing that scene later on and go, oh, that's what I auditioned with.
Right.
I had no context of what was coming.
You were really you were really in the dark. Okay, there.
Indeed.
There you go.
Indeed.
Wow.
Indeed. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes this magic happens all on its own. You have nothing to do with it. You just sort of step by and let life take you for a ride.
Absolutely. Paul Brickler, with David Hewlett being such a nice guy, how much fun was it to see him act with his sister? Are we seeing this? I don't believe that's the same episodes. So
was the one with his sister? Wasn't that the one in the
Kate came in to play against David in a few different episodes, starting in season 3. She was a really great foil for him. So,
right,
but
I don't think I had met her for my part.
I don't think so either.
No,
Yeah.
no. But like I said, David was just wonderful to watch, and wow. He did so many amazing things on set that was inspiring for me to try to carry over into other roles, just to see how he structured his work and how his performance and his delivery. And just his way, he had a way of looking panicked, even though he wasn't. he always made every scene like that interesting to watch. And I was always just in awe and feeling so honored to be working with that caliber, for sure.
There is something to be said for a performance that is coming off like McKay is always operating. You just know that man's ass cheeks are always in a clenched position.
Tight.
And but yet he's okay. Maybe not always on the surface, because David could certainly, get agitated.
For sure.
To be running at that level the whole time, you kill yourself.
To see David in the zone and surrounded by a bunch of professionals and everybody working at the highest level, David was in the peak of his time on set. I always felt like he worked the best when everybody else was working their best as well. And when you're working with him, you all have to deliver. Mm-hmm. Not that I say that he's a man that doesn't suffer fools, but he won't tolerate.
He had those days. He admitted that to us. Yeah.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
The thing that I am always blown away with you guys is the ability, and I just don't know how any of you do this, the ability to absorb complex dialogue and release it on a line of gaffer's tape at a certain point in the exact same sequence every single time. And often it doesn't come out that way, but the fact that you can get 99% of the way there, how do you do it?
Rehearse.
Yeah, drill.
Like everything, 100%. Drill. And I remember there were certain scenes I was remembering as there was a scene where we did a walk down with Joe Flanagan, and I was telling him about the dangers of letting Taylor in too much security.
Yeah.
And I remember I actually took one of the extras, and I had him drill with me about 25 times or so, coming up and down the stairs, knowing where I wanted to stop, knowing where I wanted to hit my marks, translating that to the DOP and to the director at the time, telling Joe about it. Joe could pick up any script and hit it and hit his marks.
Wow.
And for me, I felt like I needed to work and make sure I knew exactly what I was doing to feel 100% confident. And I remember that was what I would do. I would drill myself on moments to make sure that I get exactly where I need to go and hit those marks properly. And of course, for my light guys, say just a little bit in more, just a little bit back. Find your light.
Oh man, I'd be so afraid to be like, I would be so afraid to offer a note. But I guess at a certain point when you've been around people long enough, you've been talking with them between takes,
Yes.
At a certain point, you get to know them, you get to know about, who they are, who their families are.
Sure.
You want to make each other look as good as possible. And I've heard of situations where, DPs did not like certain performers and camera operators did not, and they would light them deliberately awfully.
Listen, as far as I was
still
concerned,
would get the job done, but would make them look bad.
I know, but as far as I was concerned, those are heads of families.
Yeah.
DOPs, all those kind of things. These are the people you want to make sure you're on the right side with. Because yes, in the end, they're telling that story with you inside that box, but they could only see that box in its entirety, where you're only seeing what you're allowing yourself to see as far as the visual of being connected to the person across from you. What they see is the magic. What you try to bring in is the realism. And that's where it combines. And I always think it's beautiful. So I respect those jobs so much.
What has Stargate taught you that you continue to carry with you, if anything? And what is it that you would like to leave us with?
It started and began, and it will always end with the dream.
Yeah.
It's just it's the dream of the imagination, and I've always liked sci-fi, and I'm a huge gamer as well. I just love stepping into imaginary worlds, be it on a sci-fi level or not, but sci-fi especially, because I've always dreamt of the stars. The time I got to ride in a puddle jumper and send it back home to my mom and say, look, your boy's in space now. Those are the magical moments. And as an actor, I've always tried to find magic, because that's what we do. We're telling stories, but there's so many magical little moments that they're beautiful.
The amount of creativity that you guys have inspired in fans. Oh my gosh, the jumper is still running. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
I can't bring it when close. This is out. Hang on.
Indeed, yes. Bring it up closer.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, it's so...
There it is. There it
So-
is. I know. The puddle jumper. I love it. Oh, look at that.
A fan made that, and it is
That
debuting
is
tomorrow, the unboxing of this. And
That's excellent.
you guys create story and myth and modern myths and bring it to life and inspire us to dream and to think critically about our world and the place in it and to create.
Indeed.
And I really appreciate you taking the time, Dean, to come on, share your story and what the show has meant to you. It means a lot to me to have you on, and long overdue, I must say.
Well, thank you very much, David. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and it was great sort of rehashing some of the best moments of my life, to tell you the truth.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for everything, sir.
No worries. Thank you, David.
I'm
Enjoy
going
your
to wrap
day.
up the show. You take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dean Marshall, Sergeant Bates, and Special Agent Bates on Stargate Atlantis. Really appreciate you joining me today. My tremendous thanks to my moderating team, Anthony, Jeremy, Marcia, Summer, Tracy, Raj, Lockwatcher, Kevin. You guys make this show possible. I do not row this boat alone, so it really means a great deal to have you guys there. My moderator, my producer, Linda Gatebuilder Fury, Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web. He's our guy who keeps Dial the Gates up and running. And before we let you go, if you like what you've seen in this episode, give us a click of the like button. It makes a difference with the channel and will help us continue to grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And if you click the bell icon, you'll be notified the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. We've got a packed season heading your way, and I've got a lot more coming for you. Before I get to a couple of those notes, Handtronics wanted to know, David, are you able to show clips of your guests in their roles at the beginning of your streams as you're introducing the guests for those not necessarily familiar with the shows? Unfortunately, no. YouTube allows 3 minutes of 3 minutes. 3 seconds of copyrighted content. Not even that, like 2.29. And that's it. So I would love to tee up each interview with a scene of the guest. Unfortunately, that would flag us, and we wouldn't be able to get anywhere with the show. They would kill it, and the live stream would end. So I want to always make sure that I post, the prominent character's name along with their name in the title, so that you can go over to the Stargate Omnipedia or Stargate Wiki and put that in beforehand. I do expect a little bit of the legwork to be on the viewer, as well as in terms of figuring this out for the guest. I'm also very thankful to have some more people on the program that is like, I know them, but I don't know them. That you have to look up and see who they are. So that's a back and forth there. I could certainly, I suppose, do a screenshot or two from their scenes. That's something that I could certainly implement. I'll have to think about it. But Google, y'all. Come on, there's Google. But point taken. I get you. Coming up tomorrow, we have the unboxing of that puddle jumper and me figuring it out for the first time. That's coming up. I have just confirmed the other guys are returning to Dial the Gate. Patrick McKenna and John Billingsley. They are going to be coming back to us Sunday, May the 4th at 11:30 in the morning. So we're going to be trolling the Star Wars fans from some Star Trek actors and Stargate actors. So this is one of my favorite episodes of the show and of SG-1, and so I'm really looking forward to having them on. Matthew Bennett, who played Jared Kane in Stargate SG-1, it was Icon and Ethan, and you may know him as Aaron Doral better from Cylon number 5 in Battlestar Galactica. He's going to be joining us on April 26th. A number of other folks are lined up here as well. I'm not going to belabor the point by going through the entire list, but you can check it out at dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. I am off for the next 2 weekends after this. So these are pre-recorded shows. We're just going to drop them. I'm not going to release them for comments for the YouTube chat and keep the moderators tied up. I'm just going to drop them this season. So I hope you enjoy those. I think that's everything that we've got for you here. That's it. Season 5's going good. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate, and I'll see you on the other side.